which you remember was the generating function for symmetric plane partitions, and we proved it using techniques from symmetric functions. Um, uh, Specifically, we were kind of forced to use, or seemingly forced to use, formulas for characters other than Schur functions, I mean the general linear characters. So now I want to go towards proving the generalization of McMahon's conjecture, which was McDonald's conjecture for cyclically symmetric plane partitions. I will not go through all the details, but I'll mention the key ideas, which are also very interesting. So recall what the statement was, that cyclically symmetric plane partition is a plane partition inside an A by A box, which satisfies that whenever the box at having coordinates I, j, k is present in pi, then so is its cyclic transposition. And if you sum over all cyclically symmetric plane partitions, then you get this nice product generating function where you sum over, where you take the product over all cells quotiented by the cyclic groups. So it's kind of natural generalization of McDonald's reformulation of the of the symmetric plane partition generating function. Okay, so I want to so we want to prove formula for the generating function of CSPPs inside an A by A box. So here is an example, again shamelessly lifted from Bersu's book. So this is a plane partition of 75, and you can see that it's cyclically symmetric. For example, this 3-2 partition over here occurs as this 3-2 and occurs as this 3-2. And you can see, if you look carefully, you'll see all other patterns occurring. So for example, this tetromino occurs as this one over here and this one over here. Similarly, if you stare a little bit at it, you can see all of these. So here's an example where A is what? So an example with weight q to the 75, A equals, let's say, 6. Well, of course, you could take higher A's. Okay, so how do you go about enumerating such CSPPs? So the idea, and that's the next figure again. So the idea is to separate the CSPP into what I call shells. The ith shell, the nth shell, let's say, consists of the boxes not in the n-1 shell at least one of whose coordinates is n. So like this. So for this plane partition, this is the shell side. Right. So the outermost shell is this fellow, the first shell, if you like. The second shell is this fellow, and the third shell is this fellow. And so if you, let's count the size here to verify. It might be hard to see that this is a plane partition of 75, but here you can see it easier. So you look at this partition. So that partition is what? So it's 5, 5, 5. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 2, 3 times, right? This is occurring as this, and there is one cell in the corner which is blocked. So that is that. So if you add this up, you will get 20 times 360 plus 1 is 61. And here if you do the same, this is this 2 by 2 shell, so 3 times 2, 2 plus 2 plus 1, so that is 12 plus 1, which is 13, and this is 1. So this is 75. Is that clear? So by the cyclic symmetry, this 5, 5, 5, 3, 2 occurs over here. You have to read it like so. So 5, 5, 5, 3, 2, and here is 5, 5. Is there a question? Okay. Yeah. So since each shell has cyclic symmetry, it is enough to look at 1/3 of it. So we will look at the bottom level and read it off as a partition. So this is to pick. So we look at the bottom level, which I just said here. But when I say bottom level, I want to. So I won't consider this partition. I'll consider the bigger one. So it's enough to look at 1/3 of it. Consider the bottom levels. And read them off as partitions. Okay, so in our example, my marker is behaving funnily, sorry about that. So I don't know if the problem is with my stencil or okay. It's back to behaving normally. So in our example, these are okay. So let's go up. So here I'm going to read the entire partition, not just this slide, this part over here, but the entire one. So the first row is 6, then 5, 5, then 4, 3, 3. Okay. So these are 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 3. And the second one is 3, 2, 2. And the last one is 1. Okay. I hope that's clear. As usual, please ask if there are any questions. So, so now we want to stack these and we want to form something like a plain partition. We would like to form a plain partition from an object like a plain partition, but the inequalities are not but the inequalities are not in the right form, the correct form. For example, let's compare the first two rows. So we want this, I mean, what is the inequality? This shell should sit inside this shell. If this shell is larger than this shell in any direction, then we are in trouble. Right? And similarly for this shell inside here. So the inequality is that this 3, for example, it sits inside here, right? So this 3 should be strictly less than this 5. So this 3 should be strictly less than this 5, and this 2 should be strictly less than this 5, and this 2 should be strictly less than this 4. So for example, is that clear? For example, comparing the first two shells, we have 3 less than 5, 2 less than 5, 2 less than 4. So this 3, the inequality that it satisfies is not 3 less than 6, even though that is true. It's that 3 is less than 5, and this 2 is less than 5, and this 2 is less than 4. So, in other words, I didn't align this figure properly. This is what it looks like. The alignment is as in this figure. Okay, so 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, and 1. So this 3 sits, above the second row, not above the first. This one sits above the second row of this 3, 2, like that. Okay, so in particular, this 1 you could not stretch to a 2, and then you would run into trouble. And that you can see from here, this 1 snugly fits inside here. If it were anything larger, then it would not be a plain partition anymore. Okay, very good. So we have to stack them. So we encode these partitions as what is called a strict shifted plane partition. yet another short form SS. So in the example, we have 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, and 1. Okay, but this is not enough. Because we have something even stronger. Because these guys are have the cyclic property, the largest part over here, and if you just think about it a little, the largest part over here, this 6 over here, by this cyclic symmetry, this 6 over here is the same as this 6 over here for this part of the partition, which is the same as the height of the first row for this partition. For this partition. Okay, so in addition, our cyclic symmetry imposes the condition that the number of entries in each row is equal to the largest entry in that row. So this 6 is also the length of this row, and this 3 is the length of this row, like that. Okay. So therefore, so to summarize, the number of CSPPs in an A by A box is equal to the number of SSPPs, strict shifted plane partitions, with largest entry at most A and such that the largest entry in each row equals the number of entries in that row. So I realized maybe I didn't define strict shifted plane partition carefully. So these are weak decrease along columns. Along rows, sorry. Strict decrease along columns. And this staircase indentation, staircase justification. Okay. So they have an indentation like this. So the second row starts below the second entry of the first row. The third row starts below the second entry of the second row, and so on. And you know, they should also, the right hand side should look like a partition. So there should not be any overhangs over here. So the second row after this justification should not be longer than the first row, and so on. Okay, so I didn't define this carefully, but I hope the idea is clear. Okay, so let's do an example for A equals 2. So let's look at all strict shifted plane partitions, so SSPPs, and we'll draw SSPPs and corresponding CSPPs. So first of all, there is the empty SSPP, which corresponds to the CSPP, which is 0, 0, 0, 0. And then, okay, so you want to have, suppose, so let's look at all SSPPs with one row. So I want you to tell me what they are. So give me an example which satisfies this condition. So we want one. Yeah.
Just a 1.
Just a 1. Very good. And that corresponds to the CSPP, which is 1, 0, 0, 0. What next? Can you have just a 2?
No, because we need to have at least 2 entries in the first row, in that case.
So then what can you have?
So we can have a 2, 1 and
a 2, 2. Yeah. So the 2, 1 corresponds to the CSPP, which is 2, 1, 1, 0. And the 2, 2 corresponds to the plane partition, which is 2, 2, 2, 1. And can you have anything else?
I think 2, 2 and then 1.
Yeah, exactly. So you cannot have anything with in one row, but you can have 2, 2, 1. And this corresponds to the, this is the only plane partition which has 2 shells. So let me show you. So let's go back to the figure from a long time ago. So these are all the plane partitions inside a 2 by 2 by 2 box, and let's try to see which have cyclic symmetry. So this one has cyclic symmetry. This is the empty room, or the full room, whatever you like. So this has no boxes. So this is this first example. The second is this one, which has one box. So that's this CSPP. And now let's look with 2 boxes. So if you look carefully, you will see that this goes to this under cyclic transpositions, cyclic rotations, 120 degrees. So there's nothing is invariant. Here too, this will go to this, will go to this. So nothing here. Here this will go to that, will go to this. We'll go back to this, but this one is invariant, and that is 2, 1, 1, 0. And here this will go to that, will go to this, this will go to that, will go to that. But these two are invariant. So this also has one shell, and so if you look, you have, if you look at the bottom row, you have 2, 2. And that is this. And here you have a bottom row which is 2, 2, and a top row, the corner cell which is 1. So these are, so the number of CSPPs inside a 2 by 2 by 2 box is 5. Okay. All right. So any questions so far? Okay, so all right. So now we want to try to count strict shifted plane partitions. Now the problem at this point is, well, okay. So natural idea, considering what we have seen in the last month or so, is to try to represent these as NILPs. So we can now try to represent such SSPP, strict shifted plane partitions, as families of non-intersecting lattice paths. This has been the strategy we have employed before. But there's a problem. Can you see the problem? Even in this example, you can see a problem. The problem is, can anyone see it? The problem is this condition, the largest entry being equal to the number of entries in every row. The issue is that if you have the number of parts depending on the first part, then the end point will depend on the size of the first part. And we have, so that means your starting points and end points are not fixed, and that is we don't know how to handle such things yet. Okay, so let me summarize what I just said. Because the number of parts and thus the endpoint depends on the size of the first part. Of the largest. So if I had a 5 instead, then I would have a different endpoint, and things like that in the first row itself. Okay, so this seems to be a problem, but fortunately there is a trick that we can employ. And so what's the trick? So suppose our strict shifted plane partition has m rows. With largest parts (1 less than equal to a1 less than a2 less than equal to am counted from the bottom. Okay. The idea is that there's a bit too much information here. So from the length of the row, I know that the first part has to be a 6. So there's some redundancy. So what we will do is we'll simply chop it off. So if I delete this, then I have this partition which has 5 parts, and to go back I have to add a 6 to make to have this condition, number of entries being equal to the largest entry. Right? So this redundancy can be taken care of by deleting the largest. So from the length of the row, we know the AIs. And so we can just delete them. So therefore, the ith row from bottom has AI minus 1 parts, and now if we subtract 1, by definition all the parts are strictly positive. So if we subtract 1 from each part, we have at most AI minus 1 parts in the ith row. Let me finish that sentence. Okay, so we have at most AI minus 1 parts, and each part, well, each part is less than or equal to AI originally, but now each part is less than or equal to AI minus 1 in this row. So in the ith row from the bottom. So after this transformation, which is chopping off the first, the largest part, and reducing each part by 1, we have a partition in which there are at most AI minus 1 parts, and each part is less than or equal to AI minus 1. So therefore, thus what remains is contained inside an AI minus 1 by AI minus 1 square. And now there is no more restriction. Okay? So now for a fixed tuple, A1 up to AM, contained such that AM is less than or equal to A. Maybe I should have written here. These are in increasing order. We can write a system of equations. Yeah, we can write a system of, we can transform the strict shifted plane partition into a family of non-intersecting participants. So we can do it as follows. So choose starting points to be Si, which is 0, A minus Ai, ending points Ei, which is Ai minus 1 to A minus 1. So they start on the same, on the y-axis, and they end on this fixed horizontal line using as usual upright steps. So let me show you another example. So in our example, so this is 0, 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5, 5. Okay, so let's look at so what was our example? So let's transform our example. Oh, I should have done that first. Can move this. Okay, so what was our example? So after this transformation, we had the partition. So let's go back. So we had, this was our partition. So let's look at the first row. So I chop off the 5, I chop off the 6, and I reduce everything by 1. So I get 4, 4, 3, 2, 2. So let me write the first one. So 4, 4, 3, 2, 2. That was the first one. And the second partition, let's go back up. Is 3, 2, 2. So I chop off the 3, reduce everything by 1. So I get 1, 1. And the last one is empty because I chopped this off. So I get 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, and empty. And so my A1, A2, A3. So let's say A equals 6 over here. And A1, so A1 is 1, this I chopped off, A2 is 3, and A3 is 6. Yes. So now let's mark the points. So S1 is 0, 6 minus 1, which is 0, 5. So this is S1. 0, 5. S2 is 0, 6 minus 3, which is 3. So S2 is 0. Oh, I didn't move this properly. I was wondering why it went out of whack. Okay, that one is messed up again. So 0, 3, and that's over here. So this is S2. And S3 is 0, 6 minus 6, which is the original over here. So this is already S3. And let's look at the ending points. So they'll all be on this line. So A1 minus 1 is 1 minus 1, so that's 0. So it turns out that this thing is also E1. And E2 is 2 minus 1 comma 5, so that's this. So this is E2. And E3 is 6 minus 1, which is also 5. So that is it. Okay. So as expected, you're not supposed to do anything for S1. I mean, it's empty. There's nothing you should be able to do, and there's nothing you can do because S1 is already matched to you. And now let me draw the path corresponding to this. So you just have to read this off as a partition. So S2 corresponds to this. This is the partition 1, 1. And S3 corresponds to this. Sorry. So I go 2 up, 2 down. So 2 right, 2 up, 1 right, 1 up. Right, 2 up. And you can see this is the partition 4, 4, 3, 2, 2. And okay, one can write a translation, but I hope this is clear. So this is going to be a non-intersecting family of lattice paths, starting at SIs and ending at SIs. EI, sorry. Is that clear? So this example corresponds to this. And one can write this down formally and show that this is a bijection. All right. So using this bijection, which I admit to not proving rigorously, but I think it's kind of clear. So using, I mean, you can see, okay, fine. So let me not say anymore. Using this correspondence, we have shown the following lemma. Sorry about this. I don't know why this is going. So we have shown the following lemma. The number of strict shifted plane partitions with parts less than or equal to A, having m rows, where the ith row from the bottom starts with AI and having AI parts is given by determinant of the binomial coefficient AI plus AJ minus 2. You want to see how many Horizontal steps are there, it's ai minus 1 minus 0, so it's ai minus 1. And how many vertical steps are there? Sorry, I should go from Si to Ej. So how many horizontal steps are there? It's Aj minus 1. And how many vertical steps are there? You subtract this and you get ai minus 1. So it's ai minus 1 plus aj minus 1, choose ai minus 1. 1 less than equal to ij less than equal to a. Oh, sorry, m is the number of rows. Okay, all this is fine and good, but you know, this is very restrictive because we are just counting. I mean, if you go back to the correspondence, we are counting CSPPs with M shells with prescribed heights of the first rows. So, I mean, this is to get the total number of CSPPs inside an A by box, you have to sum over all possible M's, all possible AIs, and that's not going to be particularly easy, at least not in any obvious way. So, but this is at least some progress. So the next part is to consolidate all this, I mean, to sum up all these guys, and let's see how to do that. Are there any questions meanwhile? Okay. So this is just the number. We want to, if you remember, we want to get the generating function, the weight generating function. So to get the corresponding weight generating function, we have to count the area. So remember, so the weight of this would be 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2, and that would be this area, and the weight of this would be this area, and then of course you have to account for all this extra bit that we have thrown off, which we'll do. But now if you remember what we did for the box formula, we sort of had to, you know, multiply the weight generating function by some q to the ii minus j, and you know, we had to prove this variant of the LGV lemma. But fortunately here we do not need to do that because our starting points are all on the same row. So unlike the box formula, the proof of the box formula, let's say NILP proof of the box formula, the starting points here of the NILP family, anticipating lattice paths, have the same x coordinate. They're all on the y-axis. So, so this saves us some effort. We do not need to multiply by the extra q to the I minus j factor. So if you go back to the proof of the box formula that we had, we had to multiply by this factor to kind of ensure the cancellation whenever there are intersecting paths. So therefore, we just need the weight generating function of the path from SI to EJ, of an upright path going from SI to EJ, where the weight is the area, Q to the area. But do we know that? What is the weighted sum of Q to the area as you go over all such lattice paths from SI to EJ? Have we seen it before? Can anyone answer? Yeah. So if I have to go from some SI to EJ using upright paths, where I now have to count the area of this region on the top right, what is it?
This is the Q binomial coefficient.
That's it. Yeah, so we have seen it before. You have proved it in the homework, so it's actually something fairly elementary. So the weighted sum, like the weight generating function according to area is of paths from SI to EJ is thus the Q binomial coefficient, which is AI plus AJ minus 2, whatever I wrote here, AI minus 1, Q. Right? So it's just the Q binomial. Okay, so now we want to relate. Remember, our ultimate aim is to count CSPPs. So this is not exactly the right object. So let me show you now how to go back. So let me stop sharing for a second. And add the corresponding figure. Just give me a second. Okay. So to go back to our example. Let me start sharing again. So, so this is the example before where we had decomposed our. So this is this example with this decomposition, and now there's a further decomposition of each shell. And let me explain what to do. So, so we want the Q weight of the CSPP. So our transformation that took our the bottom rows of our the bottom level of the shell of the CSPP and removed the largest entry and removed one from each entry, precisely gave us these objects. So you remove the central part, and you're left with 3 identical pieces, all cyclically transposed, and any one of them is a certain transformed row of a SSPP, the strict shifted. Right. So in our example, this NILP, these were 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, and empty, and you can see here this is 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, and empty. This is the stem, the central stem. So to every such guide, we want to associate a weight which gives you the weight of the whole thing. Okay. So the AIs correspond to the central stem. So in this case, this A1 was 6, and so you would get weight, for this. So what would that be? So you take 5 3 times, and you have 1 extra, and so you get a weight. So this gives a weight Q to the 3 times AI minus 1, 1 for each part, plus 1, which is Q to the 3 AI minus 2, right? And the remaining part, for which you get this generating function, you just count it 3 times. So every power of Q here, for example, you get a Q to the 4 here. For that, we want a Q to the 4 here, a Q to the 4 here, and a Q to the 4 here. So that's a Q to the 12. So in effect, what this does is replace Q by QQ. So since the remaining part, which is the transformed strict shifted plane partition, occurs 3 times, we can replace Q by Q cubed in the weight enumeration. Right. So we have shown, what we have shown is the following lemma. So we have this proved. Following lemma. Now we are talking in terms of weight enumeration of CSPPs. So the generating function of CSPPs inside an A by A box with M shells and row lengths one less than or equal to A1 less than A2 less than or equal to AM less than or equal to A is the determinant of Q to the 3AI minus 2 times the Q binomial coefficient AI plus AJ minus 2, Q choose AI minus 1, but not Q, but Q cubed. So here it's important to keep track of the base. 1 less than AJ is equal. Okay. So we have translated back from strict shifted plane partitions to cyclically symmetric plane partitions. But we still have to sum over all possible m, all n between 1 and a, and all possible a1 less than or equal to am, which are contained in 1 through a. Okay. And okay, this looks quite drastic, and there's a drastic sum, but there's a nice trick again due to Andrews, and this he showed how to solve this problem by another determinant. So this is a theorem from Andrews in 79. So the generating function of CSPPs, cyclically symmetric plane partitions, inside an A by A box is the determinant of delta ij, this is the Kronecker delta, plus q to the 3i minus 2, I plus j minus 2, q cubed choose I minus 1, 1 less than or equal to ij less than or equal to 1. Okay, so if you compare these two, what you would notice is that this determinant is actually a minor of this larger determinant. You pick rows and columns corresponding to the AIs, and you forget this delta term. So then you get the number of, you get this integrator. So this amounts to adding the identity matrix. So on the diagonal you have a 1 extra. Other than that, there is no change. Okay, so I mean, so because in some sense you have all possible AIs entering, you can write this as a determinant. So I should say that Andrews, if you remember what I said earlier, Andrews, I mean, this conjecture was not solved by Andrews. It was solved by Mills, Robbins, and Ramsey. But Andrews, did all this work and obtained this determinant. So he went up. He covered a lot of steps towards proving McDonald's conjecture, but he didn't get there. I mean, so he reduced it to a determinant problem, and the rest is now just computation of this determinant. But it was still quite hard, and even someone with Andrews' formidable technical skill could not do it. And this was proved by Mills, Robbins, Ramsey. Okay, so now let's see why this is true. So okay, so if we use Leibniz expansion, for this determinant. We get for all sigma in SA, all permutations of length A, and for all I such that sigma I equals I, either the first or the second term. That's the only place where there is a choice. Right? I mean, if I is not equal to j, there is only one term and there is nothing to do. So if I is equal to j, you can potentially have the first term or the second term. So if there are two possibilities, if sigma I is not equal to I, or if sigma I equal to I and we choose the second term, then our I belongs to the set A1 up to AM, right? So in other words, all the terms which involve these kind of things will correspond to a determinant like this. Only if sigma I is equal to I and we choose the first term, does I not belong to this set. Right? So what we can do, instead of summing over permutations first and then choosing this depending on whether sigma I is I or not, we can do the reverse. So thus we can first sum over the subset S of 1 through A, where we choose sigma I equals I, which are fixed points essentially, where we and choose the first term, and then what was it? And take the first term, and sum over the remaining, which which gives the determinant equal to the previous lemma, to that of the previous lemma. Right? So if I choose a bunch of, if I choose m AIs, so I'm taking the complement of S, and let's say there are m of them, and you call them in increasing order A1, A2 up to AM, those are the rows and columns. Then what you will get is the determinant of these guys with those m rows and columns, and that's precisely this. Right? So what is the problem? What is the potential problem? Is you get exactly the same thing as before up to sign, up to a possible sign. right? So what this shows, what this argument shows is that if I take the determinant of this, for every possible subset, I do get a term like this for all possible choices of A1 to AM, which are strictly increasing and contained between 1 and A. Right? The only potential problem is that the sign may not match. So what remains to be shown is that the signs match. What do I mean by that? So when we write the minor of this corresponding to the rows and columns A1 to AM, I should get this. I should get a positive sign which corresponds to this. I mean, if I get sometimes positive, sometimes negative, then I'm in trouble. But this is easy to show. You know, if you use, for example, Laplace expansion, you're taking the minor corresponding to the same rows and same columns. So by using the Laplace expansion, instead, which is the minor cofactor expansion, we always get a positive sign, but we always get a positive sign for each minor let's say subset S. Let me clarify, which gives a minor for the complement. Because the row and column indices are the same. Right? You remember you get a sign -1 to the row plus column index, but you are taking the same rows and the same columns. So for each case you will get a positive sign. So the minors are the same, and so this determinant gives you what you want. Okay, that proves the result. Any questions over this? So let me show you on Sage. So I wrote this CSPP matrix, which takes so this is using this lambda function. So it's an A by A matrix. So the input is A and a parameter Q. What we'll take is I'll take the Kronecker delta ij, which is also an inbuilt command, and q to the 3i plus 1. So this is q. So here I and j run from 1 through a. There they run from 0 to a minus 1. So I have to shift accordingly. So this is q to the 3i plus 1. So I've shifted I by I plus 1. So I get q to the 3i plus 1 times q binomial I plus j. Choose I, and I have to replace q by q cubed. Okay. So that's what this CSPP matrix does. And if I compute it for 2, I get, so this identity part is this one extra over here. And if I compute its determinant, I get this. And now if you substitute, right? So if I substitute q equal to 1, I get 5. And remember that was, that was what we had seen. We had seen these 5 CSPPs in a 2x2x2 box in that sector. But you can see that they have nice factorizations in general. And this takes some time. It's still nice. So like that. So even this determinant is not easy to evaluate. So Andrews got this formula, determinant formula, but he was not able to prove. Okay, so let me give a slight modification, which I will give as an exercise to prove. This is there in the book, so you can look at it. So if instead I want the generating function of cyclically symmetric plane partitions which have k parts of size A. So it's inside and okay, look at this. So the generating function of CSPPs inside an A by A box with now k parts of size A. So now if we want this refined count where 0 is less than or equal to k less than or equal to A. So that is to say it fills out the box with in k parts. Then you get that this is the determinant of the same matrix as before, as in Andrews' theorem, with the last row replaced by either 0, 0, up to 0 and 1 if k is 0, or by this power, this outside power q to the 3k times a minus 1 plus 1 times this row. So I'm writing a row, each element of the row is multiplied by this. So it's a minus 1 minus k, q choose 1 minus k, q cubed, a minus k, 2 minus k, q cubed, etc. You just increment both by 1 every time. So you get 2a minus 2 minus k, a minus k. If k is greater than 0. Okay, there's no plus 1 here. Okay. By the way, in the book there's a typo. This 2 is not there, so it looks a bit strange because it's a minus 1 minus k, a minus k, and then it ends at a minus 2 minus k, which doesn't make any sense. Right. So a similar argument to this proof will give this. For k equals 0, it's kind of easy to see. If k is 0, that means there are no parts of size A, so it has to fit inside an a minus 1 by a minus 1 by a minus 1 box, and then you just replace a by a minus 1. Notice that the entries do not depend on a. Okay? So that part is easy. This part involves a little more. Okay, so let me say a little more in the last 5 minutes. So if you remember a long time ago, I had the beginning of the course, I had mentioned 3 families of objects which were enumerated by the ASM numbers. So one of them is ASMs, the other one was totally symmetric self-complementary plane partitions, which we will see very soon. And the third one was descending plane partitions. So let me remind you what they are. So recall that descending plane partition, or maybe I'll write it again since it has been a while. Descending plane partitions which I had called DPPs. Back to square one. Now that we know, we have seen strict shifted plane partitions. These are strict shifted plane partitions with the following condition. So strict shifted plane partitions, remember, are plane partitions with that indented justification and weak decrease along rows and strict decrease along columns. For counting CSPPs, we have the additional condition that the largest entry in every row is equal to the number of entries in that row. But now this is the modified condition is the following. The number of parts in each row, number of entries in each row, is strictly less than the largest part in that row and greater than or equal to the largest part in the next row, that is the row below. So an example of that is 6, 6, 6, 4, 3, 3, 3. So the number of parts is 5, is strictly less than the largest part, which is 6, and is greater than or equal to 3. 5 is greater than or equal to 3. And similarly, the number of parts here is 2, is strictly less than 3, and is equal to the largest part in the next row, which is also 2. And here this last part is vacuous, so the number of parts here, 1 is less than 2. The first part is 2. Okay, so this is an example of descending plane partition. And Andrews, in proving I mean, he could prove this, he could not evaluate this determinant, but he could compute using the same techniques the determinant, could compute descending plane partitions. So this is Andrews in the same paper. So the number of descending plane partitions with largest part less than or equal to A is given by, so this is given by this determinant. So it's again delta ij, similar kind of considerations, plus q to the I plus 1, I plus j, j minus 1, q. And here too, he could not evaluate this determinant in general. He could evaluate it for q equal to 1, but he again made a conjecture in the same paper. The same thing, this determinant is equal to this product 1 less than or equal to I less than j less than or equal to A, 1 minus q to the I plus A plus I plus j minus 1 divided by 1 minus q to the 2I plus j minus 1. And he proved so he evaluated this determinant when q equals 1 to obtain the ASM. Unfortunate choice of notation, AA. So if you set q equals 1, you will get A plus I plus j minus 1 divided by 2I plus j minus 1 product over ij. And if you remember the first homework problem, I asked you to show that this is the same as the number of alternating A by A alternating sign. This is, I mean, just equating, and, doing some jugglery of factorials. Okay, so I guess this is a good time to stop. Let me stop recording.